Welcome to episode 5, recording right after episode 4. Same settings as before, episode length 48 minutes and 29 seconds. Starting off again with a recap of the previous episodes. Starting off immediately with showing different variants of Loki, though we don't see those particular variants. Mobius gets pruned, showing that Ravonna really cared about Mobius and believed they had a real connection, and then just like that, pruning him. And then we cut straight to Loki waking up at 1 minute in and seeing the other Loki staring back at him. And then we're back within the TVA, behind the golden elevator doors. And the camera just keeps going. Past all of that, through all of that, whatever it might be. To what looks like a completely destroyed world. Buildings scattered all over the place. A giant ominous cloud looking thing. Of course, we already know what this is. The cool purple lightning coming off of it. And Loki getting up. And a lot of information just dropped immediately. And seeing the Goliath, I don't know, bellow or scream or whatever it's doing. Probably hungry. And then cut immediately back to Sylvie. 3 minutes 50. It's like, even though she kind of knew that things were off within the TVA, like, first of all, how does she know so much information? Moving all the matters within the branch timeline to a different reality. It must be literally every planet, everything within a reality gets moved there. Assuming she's right and it is the end of time, then one of the possible ends to the universe, the real life ends to the universe, should be occurring here, but it's not. And of course, Loki freaking out, not knowing what's going on. I kind of wish we got to see more of these other variant Lokis. And of course, Alligator Loki. And I'm also assuming that time doesn't necessarily move forward in this place. Now, I don't think they'll answer a lot of the questions, like what exactly this place might be. They could, but they could just claim, it's some other dimension, it's some end of time place. And this is just where you drop everything, and you're able to drop everything because of how it operates, how the rules of this reality, this place, operates. And then, of course, the Eliath being here, just eating constantly. And Thor trapped in a bottle. Whatever. Variant of Thor. And hopefully get to know more about Miss Minutes as well. Because there just wasn't enough in Season 1. Exactly, what if the void isn't the end and there's something beyond it? The weirdness about talking about time in this way. That at the end, things are still being written. It's weird because they can hop to almost any point in time in the future, or in the past, it seems, of any branching timeline or reality or anything like that. So why can't you also do that with this location? I'm guessing it'll be something along the lines of Kang set it up this way. He's made it this way. Because what's the equivalent of this end of time place when you have a multiverse? I don't think something like that exists. Saying that she could live out her days in a good memory. It's weird. Obviously, she's lying, but I don't even know if it works that way here. If they even age. I don't think they do. The Loki bickering is just awesome. We need more of that. I kind of wish there was an entire episode of this. Technically, this episode is an episode of this. Seeing the other timelines, hearing them talk about. Nice. And it also, I believe all of this is references probably to the comic books, though I haven't looked into that. But this would kind of free Marvel in some way to also do little mini-series of all these other timelines and realities if they had a multiverse to work with. And it doesn't need to be tied or linked to anything. And it's also interesting to see how these variant Lokis think and act a little bit, and how they're able to get along with one another, especially these four. It's interesting because they're all different and unique in their own ways, and it's showing that Loki isn't, set in stone. Now, obviously, once a Loki isn't necessarily following the path of what a Loki should be following, they get pruned. They end up here. But it seems like some of them take an even more different path, if I can say it that way, where they're less caring of that glorious purpose thing. And then we see some of the other Lokis later on in this episode, who still seem to be like that type of Loki, that older type of Loki, that more original Loki. What a rousing speech he gave. But nobody's gonna listen to him. They're all Lokis. But he was being completely serious. This Loki has been changed so much that he's ready and willing to take on literally anything. And he truly believes in himself and that he'll be able to. When Sylvie wakes up here, it's very much reminiscent of like Jurassic Park or something. Maybe it was meant to be kind of similar to that. Now, this scene in particular is very interesting. This little hint that I kind of felt before, but didn't really put together until this little car scene, like 18 minutes and 30 seconds in. With that car and the little hood ornament that's just visible for a little few moments, made me put together this idea that Mobius might be a variant, or in some way, maybe not necessarily direct variant, but related in some way to a certain Phil Coulson. Now, I don't know if they're meant to kind of just parallel one another in an interesting way, parallel might not necessarily be the right word, but how Loki stabs Coulson before, and Coulson was kind of a huge fan of, all the various heroes, and how because of that, the Avengers come together. And then you have. I also really like this Loki's costume. This vote for Loki guy, who's trying to rule over, I guess, all the other Lokis. But, like I was saying, this Mobius being kind of a fan of Loki, almost, paralleling the two. And the Hood Ornament, if anybody's watched the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, you know that that little hood ornament, it very much represents Coulson. The TVA must be stopped because anytime a Loki tries to be a better Loki, tries to be a better person, they all get pruned. Of course, even if a Loki doesn't try to be a better person and just tries to do anything, they'll just be pruned if it's not supposed to be part of the sacred timeline. I'm guessing in Kang's mind, it was just easier to convince the TVA agents to do all of this by putting it in terms of they're doing the greater good, and without having them know what actually happens to pruned timelines or any of the beings within them, and making sure, I'm guessing, that they don't dwell on it or think about it too much, and them truly believing that this needs to be done, or else it's just going to be worse, more chaos, and an entire war behind all of it. Just having, you're building soldiers, brainwash soldiers in multiple ways of talking about brainwashing, and having them fight your war, fight your fight to stop what you're trying to avoid. Take around the back of the Goliath. I don't even know if this thing has a back or a front. Like, technically there's a face, but it looks like it could just eat things by kind of wrapping itself around them. It doesn't need to use the mouth part. I wonder if we'll get to see if this creature is just, this is how it is. Like, this is how this creature always was, or if it was created in some way. If there are others like it. Loki being so relieved to see them both. It's just so touching. Us as a child. An alligator. We're gonna kill a lion. And she is absolutely right. That is the guard dog protecting the end of time, or what's beyond the end of time. She is going to enchant it. Which means this thing has a mind. It has a will. Back to Ravona. And these little prison capsule things. What are these for? Like, are these for variants? Are these for TVA agents? It's weird that Ravona just doesn't realize how Sylvie thinks and doesn't realize what's driving her. That line is brilliant. You only want it. She needs it. Absolutely brilliant. So well delivered. Ravona is absolutely the perfect soldier. Don't care who it is, don't care who's in charge, don't care where the orders are coming from. Never question it. 100% completely loyal to the mission and to whoever or whatever it might be that's in charge. It doesn't even matter if her entire worldview is turned upside down. She's still 100% loyal. And I think that's kind of like how some people are when their ideas are challenged and they just double down or triple down or whatever on what they believe, refusing to let go. It's almost like everything that they believe and think is so interwoven with the fiber of who they think they are and their identity and their being and every thought and every belief and every idea they've ever had or everything they've ever thought to be true that they can't untangle any of it. A very nice moment with Sylvie and Loki together. It's so fun how they're talking about their moment. being kind of joking together, being honest, being open, being vulnerable. Very nice move. Him conjuring the cloak around them both. Oh, I just need these two to be happy. They have to get a good ending after everything that's happened. Loki being completely honest about everybody who's betrayed. And knowing and truly believing that he has changed. And even being able to kind of joke about, and then there would be a timeline where he could rule. And saying, oh yeah, and that'll make me happy. At this point, it's clear that Loki knows ruling won't make him happy. Weird ball bird thing. I guess it doesn't even matter what these are. I was just gonna be like, what are these things? It doesn't matter. They were part of some reality that got pruned, and they ended up here and managed to survive somehow. I wonder if the ball thing is actually their head or their brain or something. Can they see? I assume they can see or feel. They've managed to avoid all of this for who knows how long. And Loki is 100% committed. The other Loki is willing to stay to defend their home, which is kind of weird, but it does make sense that they've been here for so long. This has basically become their home now. I do hope we get to see them again. And even though Mobius says he's planning to burn it to the ground, I think he's trying to burn down what the TVA is currently. But something like the TVA is still necessary. And having this hug between them. I really, really like the dynamic between Loki and Mobius, and Loki and Sylvie. And hopefully we get all three of them together in the next season. And some of the other characters that we didn't get as much of. but should be important to the future of the TVA and everything going forward. But again, because there's so few episodes per season of this show, I don't know how much they could actually focus on, how much they could actually do with the characters. Like, the focus is always going to be on the main characters, the main three of them. So you just have to hope that there's enough time given to the rest. Or maybe have a season 3. Or have a longer season 3. Or have, like, a special or some other thing come out to give a little bit more. Absolutely epic music, having the two of them face off against this massive monster cloud thing. And then this Loki coming in and conjuring like an entire city. Absolutely awesome. Them being the same, both of them being able to enchant it together, using both their powers. The Alliance is trying to eat the Asgard place, but I wonder if it knows or it realizes it's fake. I guess it's weird because it's almost like this thing's a bottomless pit and it just keeps eating. So would it even know if it has actually ate something or not? I'm guessing that's why it just tries to keep eating. Because it maybe doesn't know. Or, like, this Loki's power, it is actually able to consume that power. And then unfortunately this Loki is killed. And is eaten by the Alliance. And then just in time, they were able to enchant it. The way this is shown, it almost looks like this castle, I guess, was within the Alliance. Like, it's not necessarily guarding it, it has it within it. And then it just kind of opens. Like, it almost looks like this is the Alliance. It's just opening. And this thing isn't behind it, it's like within it. Which would be a really good place to hide your castle. You take it to the end of time or to some other dimension reality thing where you're using as a graveyard for realities that you've been having your people prune all this time. in a place where they can never hop to and nothing can ever get out, and then you hide your castle within a monster that exists there that's just constantly devouring everything. Like, I don't know if there is a better place to hide your castle. But I did really, really like the way that we get to see them finally come together, both Loki and Sylvie. Get to see them realize that Lokis are more capable than they themselves even realize. And it's almost like they've been holding themselves back the entire time, but I think it's meant to be more like all Lokis, and probably even all characters just across the MCU, have trauma that they need to deal with, and a lot of them haven't. And that is what's holding them back. In a sense, they're all holding themselves back in some way. And through various things that might happen to them, whether they're a hero or a villain or anything in between, it almost seems like a big enough distraction can help them pass that, or a big enough shock or something else that happens, but they don't always seem to get a chance to be able to properly work through everything that's happened to them and work through any past trauma. But for some characters, you do see it slowly happen throughout their movies. And for anyone that have gotten a TV show, you kind of see it play out a little bit, especially like WandaVision. You get to see that. In Moon Knight, kind of, but I'm really hoping for more of that in season 2. And in Loki, you see that, like, just fully and completely in here. And then I guess a little bit kind of for Doctor Strange in the What If series. You kind of see that, but they had to make their own version of Doctor Strange in order to go through that to some degree. And in the main series for Doctor Strange himself, it doesn't seem like that's happened too much, but maybe in a future movie that may be happening a little bit more. Because the woman he's in love with has just married somebody else and she seems completely happy. And then he had to deal with the entire multiverse and America Chavez, and it seems like now he might go off with this other individual who I know from the comic books he's supposed to have a relationship with. And maybe that's the direction that that particular Doctor Strange will go. Have a relationship with that woman, but also find a way to fix any mistakes that he himself has made in damaging the multiverse, or any other variants of him, or maybe just any other beings within the multiverse itself that have caused or almost caused incursions. What would be really cool and interesting, but I don't necessarily see this happening, would be that particular Doctor Strange going off to try to heal incursions, and then ending up in the Spider-Verse in an animated movie where that particular Miles Morales Spider-Man will also have to go and try to fix or deal with these what look like incursions. They call it something different, but it really looks like that's exactly what's happening. Like those events are actually incursions. But I'll probably talk more about that when I do a review of those particular movies. And I won't do them in the style of this kind of podcast type thing where I'm watching it and talking about it. For those, I plan to more so watch through the movie, make some notes, and then talk about that in a more structured format. Because I've kind of already done that with those particular movies, but I'll probably need to rewatch them again at least one other time. to really get my thoughts in order, make a bit more notes, and clean it up a little bit. And probably for all the other movies in the MCU, when I plan to go through them, I'll probably just do a watch through and then make some notes and then do a kind of podcast talk about what I thought and what I predict and what I hoped for, what ended up happening, and all of that stuff. But for the Loki series, I wanted to do it a little bit differently because I just straight up ran out of time to try to rewatch it and make notes and do all of that because I wanted to get it out before season 2, and season 2 is literally tomorrow. And I will end this one here.